So the dismissive avoidant craves connection, but then runs from it when it arrives. You see, there are three major reasons at a root level that dismissive avoidants fear intimacy. And by addressing these things with a dismissive avoidant, if they are willing to work on them in a relationship, it can completely change the dynamic. But there's a really important way that you have to be able to vet to see if this person's actually doing the work. So in today's video, we are going to break down the three major reasons why the dismissive avoidant fears intimacy, and some of these things may really surprise you. So first and foremost, I think it's really relevant to recognize the fact that dismissive avoidants do not like the feeling of losing control. Okay. A lot of times, dismissive avoidants aren't necessarily controlling so much over other people, but they're very controlling of their own time. Okay. So they're sort of like, okay, I'll let everybody, go do their own thing and manage how they want to spend their time, and I'll let them sort of live and let live. But they're often very afraid of feeling out of control emotionally. And they also don't like feeling out of control of their own emotional bandwidth, essentially the amount of energy that they can bring to their interactions with people. So when they feel, withdrawn, or they feel tired, or they're just not feeling like their best self, this is when they will tend to retreat and try to create space as a form of actually trying to create a sense of control for themselves. Now we know that this usually comes from their inability or struggle to actually co-regulate. And what it means to co-regulate in relationships is really lean on each other. Be yourself when you're in the presence of other people. Be able to let somebody in. And this may sound like sort of a funny analogy, but when you think of somebody spending time with their dog, I've never heard a single human being being like, "Oh my gosh, don't want to be around my dog too often. It feels so overwhelming." No, because nobody feels judged by their dog. Dismissive avoidants have this huge fear of being judged, way more than they'll ever let on. And they don't want to be seen as shameful, or they don't want to be seen as doing the wrong thing and seen as defective or like something's wrong with them. And so they'll really try to spend a lot of time keeping people at arm's length and controlling a little bit of how people see them, or just not really, letting people see them deeply, because deep down they fear that they're going to be seen as shameful. And so they'll keep people at arm's length and avoid co-regulation for this reason. Okay. So this actually has a huge impact on the first major reason that dismissive avoidants fear intimacy. And until these things are actually addressed in a healthy way, you'll see them sabotage intimacy and closeness in their relationships, of course. Okay. Number two, dismissive avoidants don't actually believe that other people can soothe them. So if you grew up in a household or an environment where caregivers were not emotionally available to you, they were not attuned to your emotions, they weren't present, they didn't know how to really show up or interact with you if you felt stressed, and they dealt with your stress or your emotions by kind of deflecting them or ignoring your emotions or avoiding them, then essentially we learn to take on and treat ourselves in the same way that we were treated, and that especially applies to the way our emotions are mirrored to us. In other words, if a dismissive avoidant had this mirroring where it was like, okay, when I see you stressed, the way I'm going to show my reaction to this is to dismiss you, deflect. Well, the dismissive avoidant literally, through one of the behavioral stages of development, goes, okay, well, this is teaching me how to treat my own emotions. And they will mirror back from their caregiver the way that they treat themselves. And so essentially what this means is, guess how they treat their own emotions. They treat their own emotions by shutting down, by ignoring, dismissing their own feelings, trying to bury them, or really separate themselves from them, just like their caregivers often did to them. Try to, oh, go in timeout. Children should be seen and not heard. There's no time for this. Don't be a crybaby. A lot of these small pieces of messaging had foundational impact on how this person learned to actually treat themselves. And so what ends up happening is a dismissive avoidant grows up believing, well, people can't soothe me anyways. People won't be there for me anyways. And it's almost like the idea of somebody being able to be there for you is so far removed from your awareness that the concept of even trying to get there is just automatically rejected. And so this is part of why you'll see them really push away anything around intimacy or intimate close reactions. And this really includes like anything. This includes like physical intimacy, physical touch, of course, emotional intimacy being the biggest cornerstone here, because all of these things play into each other, right? Like if somebody is completely emotionally disconnected, affected, that will affect physical closeness, that will affect physical intimacy, and so on. Okay, so a really, really important component. Now, before we get to the third major reason here, and what we can actually start addressing to see if this person's really ready or able to do the work and move the needle, and how to address that conversation. Before we get into that, I do just want to let you know that just for the very last day here of the month, we are offering completely for free. It's actually a gift, so you can sign up to claim it, a $250 course completely free. And this course is one of our favorite courses in PDS, and it's called Key Pillars to a Secure Relationship. It is all about how to really develop secure relationships, secure bonds, closeness with somebody else, and what those key pillars are to actually building secure attachment. And so if you want to dive in there and really get into some of that stuff and have a healthy model or roadmap for what healthy, secure relationships look like, you get to claim this absolutely for free. It also comes with a 7-day free pass to PDS, but if you cancel before day 7, you will never be charged anything, and no matter what, you will keep that $250 course for life. We're just doing it for one last day here of the promotion, so make sure you don't miss out, and you can claim that with the link down below in the description. Okay, so last but not least, for dismissive avoidant attachment styles, vulnerability or emotional connection literally triggers shutdown as a protective reflex, because vulnerability equals danger. Okay, vulnerability equals like, whoa, too much closeness. I could be weak if I'm vulnerable. Because as children, when you don't get your emotions attuned to and connected to, what do? You're like, oh my gosh, my emotions just don't get me anywhere. Being vulnerable to somebody only gets me rejected. So you learn to shut down and reject this aspect of yourself as a coping mechanism. And then you see yourself as somebody who's weak if you are expressing these things. So shutting down is literally this protective reflex. It is like second nature to them to literally shut down and shut out as a form of coping. And at a deeper level, there's this assumed rejection for showing their emotions, this assumed like, oh, that's weak, or something's wrong with me if I do that. When in reality, being able to emotionally share yourself with somebody is a healthy part of secure attachment. Being able to share your needs and your feelings and open up and understand the internal reality of somebody else is a huge cornerstone to much deeper connection. So I hope this gives you some insight. If you have more questions about dismissive avoidance, let me know in the comments, and I will literally make content about your questions in future videos. And also make sure you don't miss liking, sharing, subscribing to this channel, because we often do add, share free courses or things like that with our community here from the Personal Development School. So make sure you like, share, subscribe so you don't miss any of those cool offers and gifts that we have. And really excited to see you in tomorrow's video.